I'd like to say that Josh Homme just checked in and said that was very excited that this class is happening. He said,
awesome. Tell him we say hello.
What a treat.
Hey guys, Josh here. We were lucky enough to have Iggy Pop's bandmate Matt Sweeney drop in for a chat after our live class on the tune Nightclubbing. Matt talks about working with Iggy, his rehearsal lingo, and how counting while you play your instrument can be cool. Be sure to check out the full broadcast guitar episode on Nightclubbing in the description below, and enjoy the interview. Matt, thanks for being here. What did you discover about the man as you got to play with him? Like, where does this black leather jacket voodoo come from? Like, he just has rock and roll oozing from his veins. Can you talk about that a little bit, about what it's like just to be around someone that close to rock and roll?
It's exciting for me because he really is my favorite. Like, Iggy's like since I was 16. He's kind of been it for me. So I was starstruck, etc. But what's interesting, he's the son of an English teacher, and he was really, really close to his dad, who's the English teacher, and really close to his parents. Talked to his dad every day, the whole time he was being the rock person that you described. And he's insanely well read. He's one of the smartest people I've ever been around, easily. But as far as like that low voice that you mentioned, he saw the Doors play a really sloppy, terrible show, and it blew his mind that, Jim Morrison sang low when everybody else was singing high. He got a kick out of that. And so here on the first Stooges record, the song We Will Fall is that's kind of the original spooky goth voice song. He was going tonight. So, he, even when he was a little kid, because he was 21 or something like that, he was doing that record. He already had this idea of singing low, of this kind of croony voice.
Yeah, it almost has this like sarcastic crooner. I don't like the word sarcastic, but there's a personality to it.
Removal sometimes when he sings down low, like kind of like, ooh, I can sing like this.
Yeah. And
then in the case of rehearsing with him and stuff, it was really interesting. He's extremely pro. He really has his shit together. He really comes prepared for rehearsals, and he doesn't half step it at rehearsals. He does it like he's doing it live. So it's like, it's full, if it's a loud song, it's full blast, and that song was fun. Okay. And then going back to how you're showing a great way of like learning how to interpret it. This band that we did and the tour that I did, the idea was doing it exactly like the records, because Iggy had never done that. So Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age, his two favorite records are Lust for Life and The Idiot. Those guys were absolutely granular about every friggin' second. So that was I've never been part of a recreation kind of thing like that. And it was in this case, I thought it was necessary because there is this kind of aesthetic and approach. So it was really interesting getting so granular. And then what's fun is that on all the songs on those records, including Nightclubbing, there's this big bass line, all of them.
Yeah, let's talk Nightclubbing a little bit. I'm trying to put my finger on like the magic in that song. It's the best I could come up with would be like tipsy glam blues. How does the song land for you?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the vocal is amazing. Everything about it sounds great. I mean, that whole record, or those two records that Iggy Pop and David Bowie made together, The Idiot and Lust for Life, are sort of like one long record to me. And I highly recommend those records to check out because they were an inadvertent blueprint for, I guess, post-punk music in a lot of ways. Certainly bands like Joy Division, I mean, so many bands were really foundationally built on those two albums. And those records, to me, always sound different every time I hear them. Like I've listened to that song 7,000 times, and I put it on to refresh before talking to you, and it sounded like a new song, So there's a lot of production moves going on. There's a lot of unhinged guitar playing. It's got that creepy crawl feeling You know, you sort of feel like you're being let in to a world, you know, especially in that song. It's like you're the passenger, you're along with him. It's also amazing is that, you know, the Grace Jones's version is equally incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really cool song. I like that you're showing ways of interpreting it. I think that's really cool as opposed to trying to copy it.
Yeah. Thank you. You're playing like real heavy quarter notes on the bass there. There's a lot of responsibility we talk about in this class, you know, just respecting the whole note, you know, the quarter note. We warm up with some counting. When you're on stage, do you ever find yourself counting? I try to explain to people how it's sort of like these like glasses you can flip on and just sort of make sure you're liking what you're seeing. How does like music theory and things like that, if we talk about the rehearsal, are there times where you guys were like, hey, it goes to the flat 7, or what's the lingo like? How do songs come together?
Counting, particularly with that song, because I think I would count, and counting I think is pretty cool sometimes, especially again with these particular songs. There's kind of extra bars, and there are these kind of quirks to the material that really, you know, probably were not super deliberate when they were making the record, but they obviously when they listen back, they're like, oh, that was a good idea. We'll keep that, you know. So structurally, and again, I really cannot overemphasize how great Lust for Life and The Idiot are. Like, check those records out. They're just,
Yeah.
you could do a whole class on the song Lust for Life. That would be fun.
I found that when I've done cover band gigs, like the slightest little piano part can be like the make or break. Did you find with these tunes, they just like got lift off, or were you guys like, what's happening? We have the tune. What is it going to take?
Oh, yeah, good. So going back to that, no, so we had it utterly down, and every single kind of thing that happens, like Josh did that guitar solo. Was I think Carlos Alomar is on that recording. He's a great guitar player, and like, you know, the way that guitar solo sounds and feels, and how insane it is, and how it goes on for like a little bit. It's like it's a weird bunch of counting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. We took all that into consideration a lot, especially those guys, because they really are like obsessed with those records. The Queens of the Stone Age guys, like Josh, Troy, and Dean are like that. That's their favorite music. Period. Those two records, like, you know, some people like the Beatles. They like these two records. You know, so they were really serious about it, and I think Iggy was so flattered and thrilled about it. And also, you know, it was interesting. Our first rehearsal was the day after David Bowie died.
Oh man,
really effing heavy. In fact, yeah, like we played a few songs and it was too loaded. As far as I've never, and I somehow stumbled into being a professional musician and playing with lots and lots of different people. I know how to read clarinet music in B flat, and I haven't tried since I was 15. So maybe I don't even know anymore. And then beyond that, let's just answer your question about how that worked. Like, I'll write down, you know, I know the names of chords and stuff like that. And sometimes I guess I'd make notes like that. And then I wouldn't use this for Iggy stuff, but I do think the Nashville number system is incredibly interesting. And that's the only system that I kind of have seen used in studios, you know, but again, that's my really particular weird take on things, or my weird experience. But it is interesting. There's never any.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I know that like I saw an interview with Jimi Hendrix's engineer, and he said Jimi Hendrix would describe things as like purple, like make it sound more purple. And Eddie Kramer was like, I just kind of figured out eventually what he meant by that. How does Iggy Pop like to describe if he like wants a song to feel different? What kind of lingo does he use?
Good question. You know, he's a 60s guy, so he will some shit like groovy, and you know, it's amazing. He really is a 60s dude, which is funny because we think he was a punk. But, and he's extremely frisky. He wants to scream, you know, like, ooh, that was frisky. He's got incredible command of the English language.
Nice. I know that I read Iggy Pop, and I'll let you go on a few, that Iggy Pop said originally he just wanted to be a blues drummer. What are your thoughts? Like, is he playing blues around like the touring van? It feels like he again, like he's in touch with this like pure rock and roll thing where it's so close to blues that like I'm just curious what your thoughts are on how blues like played a role in his music.
He was a blues drummer in Chicago professionally, and then I know this. I mean, he's got an incredible radio show on BBC Six that is like brain-bustingly exhaustive, and just so much music, so you could really get an idea of what he's into. I definitely say like I think he said that he listens to Cluster almost every day, or he really loves German progressive rock from the '70s,
Okay.
like Noi and Kraftwerk and Cluster and Can and stuff like that. That's what he loves. And I've talked to him. He's like that is the stuff that he goes back to a lot. But and then as far as like blues stuff, well, yeah, I don't know. No, I don't think we ever talked about it. But it's also kind of like German progressive rock, not blues. Yeah.
Gotcha. I guess by the time the songs arrived at Iggy, like you had Josh who had done his like I know these records inside and out, so I can see how there wasn't a lot of feel tweaking. But I was just curious if like halfway through you're like, oh yeah, this is like a reworking of Manish Boy or something. Because the more I listen to Iggy Pop, the more I'm like I can hear those blues classics in there. We'll let you go in a minute. Let's wrap up with our three questions. Album rec, a film rec, and a doc rec for the gang to check out this week.
Well, since the gang has been forced to suffer through Iggy Pop, I guess you should stay there. Life and The Idiot. Because
all right. Lust for Life.
Mm-hmm.
And The Idiot.
Yeah, those are,
Iggy Pop. All right. We homework has been assigned. How about for a film? What's a movie you really dig?
I'd also say, by the way, when you listen to this record, the rhythm section is really incredible. Those are these two brothers, Hunt and Tony Sales. Dig it. Film, film, I'd say, well, do we have a lot of Chicago people in the...
Sure.
I think a really fascinating movie is called Stony Island. And it's a movie that was made in the 70s using mostly non-actors, although there are some surprise guests in there. And it's starring teenage musicians, and it's about the Chicago jazz rock scene in circa 76 or 77. Absolutely slam dunk of a movie. One of my favorites.
Awesome. I haven't seen it. I'll check it out. And what's a doc? Well, it doesn't even have to be music, but it can be. What's a doc that you recommend?
I'd like to say that Josh Homme just checked in and said that was very excited that this class is happening. He said,
awesome. Tell him we say hello.
What a treat. Documentary, I'd say, since we're in a music class, I can't recommend. If you want to see about how really cool rock recordings were made in the 70s by Nick Lowe, who was Elvis Costello's producer, and he's made some of the best records ever. There's a doc that you can find on YouTube called Born Fighters.
All right.
And that's Nick Lowe making records, talking about how to make records, talking about how to play together, all sorts of stuff. I think it's a really mind-blowing doc. And again, this is very rock-centric, but I'm just sticking with the
sure.
Sticking with the assignments because there's a lot of other things I could recommend. But I think that's pretty tight. We're covering
those all look solid to me. I also endorse those records, and we'll check out Stony Island and Born Fighters. Matt, thanks for taking the time to drop in and chat with the gang. Extra inspired to keep practicing, and have yourself a great rest of your Monday.